This is primarily an iPhone and Android application presentation. So if you are a heavy BlackBerry user or Microsoft user, there are going to be some things that probably won't adhere to you. But in most cases, a lot of these apps will be coming to those platforms soon. But this is a pretty heavy Android and iPhone app presentation. The other thing is that a lot of the apps that are secondary to a primary service, like let's say a company has a site on the web but also have an app that supports it, some of those won't be presented. Most of these are mobile specific or only applications. So if you're a Bullhorn user, they have an app, but I don't talk about that because they're primarily a web service. Or HiredView also has an app. So if you use those products, that's great, but because they're primarily a web service, we don't really talk about those. We try to stay primarily on mobile only, unless it's a big service like LinkedIn or Facebook, which we do talk about. And I wanted to start quickly with a story. About 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was a lot of debate around mobile development in terms of web apps versus native apps. And if you don't know what that is, web app is essentially a website designed to respond to whatever screen size or platform it is. Whereas a native app is built specifically in the ecosystem of the application provider. So if you're an iPhone user, you go to iTunes to download apps, for example. All of those apps are designed specifically for the SDK or the development tools for iPhone. And for Android, they have a different set of tools. And there's a lot of debate around which strategy was going to win. And a lot of people, me included, thought that the native web app was going to win. So Facebook was one of these companies that thought the same thing, and they essentially developed some of the early apps in HTML5 as opposed to native development. And if some of you remember using Facebook a few years ago, it was really slow, it was sort of sluggish, it just didn't work very well. And about a year or so ago, they switched over to native applications for their mobile services, and you saw a big improvement on how the devices work. And we're seeing in terms of usage on mobile phones, apps far outweigh usage of web apps. So I and a lot of other people, Mark Zuckerberg included, were wrong about, I think, web apps being the primary development tool for mobile devices, and apps have really sort of come out the winner in that. So as a result, we're seeing apps pop up all over the place. We're seeing people use them really regularly. They're really easy to use, essentially like bookmarks on your device. And so I started sort of investigating, exploring all the different apps that are used for recruiting, and there were so many that top 10 turned into top 25, 25 turned into 50, and I could actually probably turn this into 75 if I really tried. So we're going to kind of shotgun through these, write them down. I know you get the presentation after in a recording of this. If you have questions specifically about some of the apps, we can go into after the presentation. But this will be sort of a real broad overview of some of apps that may or may not pertain to how you guys recruit. Morale.me, I'll get out of the way quickly because it's my app. And I think it's partly important to just let you know that I actually do design apps and develop apps. So I do kind of know what I'm talking about on that end. But Morale.me is basically a employee engagement tool where each month you can basically send a push notification to your employees to ask them how their job's going or how they're feeling essentially in their job, and you can get an aggregate reading each month on smiley faces or frowny faces on how your employees are feeling. LinkedIn, we'll start off with the big guys first. You're obviously using LinkedIn, whether it's on mobile or not. I think importantly about LinkedIn is roughly 25% of their usage is mobile now. Twitter and Facebook tend to be much bigger, but LinkedIn, I think, understands how important mobile is, and they're getting more and more into mobile as a part of your life. So if you use LinkedIn, you know that they recently redesigned their app for iPhone, and they're sending more content, more updates. The search capabilities are much better. So I think you're going to see more and more improvements from LinkedIn, and it should be definitely part of your tool set if you're recruiting. Foursquare, for those of you who don't know, is a check-in app, or at least it initially was, where it would geolocate you based on your location, and you would check into, say, restaurants, places of work, museums, etc. And it has now since become sort of a recommendation engine as well. So what friends like, where your friends have been, you know this. Now, recruiters are really sort of guerrilla style using Foursquare in interesting ways. One of the ways they look at it is you can actually go to Foursquare on the web and do searches around, say, businesses. And you can see, you know, who's the mayor of that business, what kind of locations are around the business where people go that they might have lunch or they might have events or things like that. And then they're trying to basically reverse engineer who those people are that might be on LinkedIn, what their positions might be, and then, you know, casually showing up at the places where, you know, these folks have lunch or where they meet. So Foursquare is an interesting way to, for recruiters to sort of get where people are and then sort of, you know, hang out where people are located for recruiting opportunities. CardMuch, which was actually purchased by LinkedIn a few years ago, is a really cool app where if you go to an event or you meet someone and you get a business card from them, you can actually take a picture of the business card. The photo goes to another country, and then they actually manually put in the information. And then once the information is put in, you can ask to link in to that person. So it's a way to really easily get a business card, take a picture, find that person on LinkedIn, connect, and then they're in your network really quickly via your mobile device. Tumblr, which is interesting because they've been in the news lately. Hopefully you've been paying attention that Yahoo recently purchased them. One of the things that Tumblr is, in terms of demographic, is very young. So if you're looking to sort of get in front of a younger audience, this might be interesting. The thing that's cool about Tumblr is their usage of hashtags. So people will put hashtags around, you know, nursing, sales, my job, you know, whatever it is that they do, they're putting those tags in Tumblr, and you can go find who these people are. And I think that as Yahoo becomes more prominent in Tumblr, you're going to have more advertising opportunities to maybe put an ad in front of people that are, you know, putting tags around nursing or whatever you're trying to recruit around that. So keep an eye on Tumblr as not just a way to share art and creative things, but as a way to potentially find potential candidates. Twitter, I'm sure most of you know and are on Twitter actively. Hopefully a lot of you are using Twitter as a recruiting tool. And a lot of you could probably tell me more about Twitter because there's so many ways to use it creatively. One thing that I will underscore with Twitter, advertising is a big part of their future. They recently launched local advertising or advertising in general, and I actually wrote a blog post about how important Twitter has become as a recruitment advertising tool. So you can target ads on Twitter, do-it-yourself style, by location, keywords that people are updating on, hashtags they're using. One of the ways that I've seen Twitter used really creatively around advertising is if you know that there's an event, a conference that's coming up that is really you know, ripe with people that you want to get in front of, you can advertise on Twitter by that hashtag. So all the people at that conference that are using that hashtag, they're on Twitter. You can have that ad show up on Twitter promoting your company, a job, you know, whatever it might be. So Twitter is a great way, and if you're using Twitter manually, you know, I'm sure you're using ad science to communicate with people. I'm sure you're setting up, you know, alerts on what keywords people are using. But Twitter is a really cool tool, and it's also a social network in terms of being able to contact people and talk to them directly. We're seeing some job sites that are using Twitter that people are finding jobs with Twitter. People are using resumes with Twitter. I think that's a little out there, but I think Twitter is going to just become more and more a part of how we recruit. Sonar is sort of an interesting tool that really caught fire a couple of years ago at South by Southwest that enables you to essentially see who is around you that is connected to you in some way. So it may be a Twitter connection, a Facebook connection, that you know so-and-so is at a bar across the street, or so-and-so that knows so-and-so is over here. And again, this is something that if you're at a conference or an event that, you know, people are around that you might want to recruit, Sonar is a great way to sort of quickly get alerts that, you know, who's around you and how are they connected to you. Highlight is essentially the same thing. They caught fire as well at South by Southwest, and they as well are a tool that you can use to get alerts of, hey, someone is near you that knows so-and-so, and here's how you're connected, and here's where they are. If you really want to get aggressive, go find that person and talk to them based on their social profile. Quora is a question or answer site, which is how they got their name, question or answer Quora. And Quora is a great way, one, to just learn stuff. So you can find out, who are the thought leaders in certain topic areas, who's interacting with certain topic areas, who's following certain topics around maybe industries that you're trying to recruit for. I also encourage you to be active in the Quora community. So if there are questions around your target demographic that you can answer and you can actually become an expert on, that's only going to drive more awareness to you as a person, to you as a company or your brand. So it's an interesting way that you can do that. Quora also recently launched the ability to blog. So if you're into blogging, you like providing content, Quora may be a new way that you can provide content and also interact with the Quora community, where people can, basically thumb up, vote up or down your blog post. They can follow you and things like that. So if you haven't checked out Quora, I encourage you to do that. Some of you may be familiar with TalentDen. TalentDen recently launched a sort of standalone mobile app called Lookup, and Lookup is people search. So if you're not using, some of the array of tools to find people, Lookup should be one of the tools that you're looking at. It's a basic kind of Boolean query search, find people, and just what you do on the web, you can do on your mobile device. So if you're stuck in an airport or whatever, you can start looking for people. Kickstarter is it's a website but also an app where people launch businesses. So I would go on and say, hey, I've got this new idea for a watch, and I want to raise $50,000, and for $100 you can get early access to the watch or get the first round of orders. Now, what I think makes Kickstarter interesting in terms of a recruiting tool is a lot of the people that are launching ideas and launching Kickstarters are pretty smart people. Sometimes their stuff doesn't get funded, but it doesn't mean that their idea is bad or that they're not intelligent people that know what they're talking about. So if you're not on Kickstarter, kind of looking at what are people launching that might be great candidates for our company, maybe future executives. Kickstarter is sort of an early way to get the apple on the tree before it falls. Eventbrite is probably familiar with a lot of you. It's just basically events and how they're managed. Now, what's interesting about Eventbrite is you can follow events, you can sign up and get alerts for similar events to what your industry might be. You might find people that are signed up for an event that you weren't aware of before the event. You can go sort of track them down and see what they do by their social profile, and make an effort to make sure that you meet that person at that event if there's somebody that is a potential candidate to talk to. Facebook, another one that you're all very familiar with. We'll get into more obscure ones here as we go. Facebook, I think, is really interesting for mobile in regards to, 750 million Facebook users are active monthly users on the platform. And if you're advertising on Facebook, they have a new advertising platform it's called the Power Editor, and I encourage you to look at that or at least get familiar with it. What Power Editor allows you to do is focus your ads just on mobile, for example. You can also use tools that will spider or scrape Facebook IDs of maybe groups that you're looking to recruit. So, for example, maybe there's a Ruby on Rails group on Facebook that you want to get in front of. You can go in, spider all the IDs from that group, and then you can plug in those IDs into your Power Editor for advertising. So you can essentially scrape the members from a Ruby group, put them in Power Editor, and put an ad on mobile only, for example, that says, hey, if you're a Ruby developer, great opportunities, and you know that you're going to get in front of Ruby people because you targeted that group. You can also, interestingly, take email addresses and plug them into Power Editor. So if you haven't, looked at your ATS data for a while, maybe you can pull out emails from your ATS, plug them into Facebook, and get in front of the people that applied back in the day to maybe get in front of them. Maybe they have the experience say that they didn't have then, and Facebook is a really cool way to do that. You can also use Facebook's mobile app to look at who is near you at any given time or who has been around the area. Basically, it's called Near You, so you can see who's been around close by. It's sort of like a Foursquare solution, but it's unique to the mobile platform. Recruiting news, if you're a news junkie like I am, all this stuff, Recruiting Cloud or Career Cloud launched recently a mobile exclusive site or app called Recruiting News, where you can go and basically just aggregate or look at all the different blogs and news sources around recruiting. There's probably a few that you've never heard of. You might find new locations to find more information, new startups and technologies that can help you be a better recruiter. Meetup, to me, is one of the most underutilized recruiting tools. It is, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically where groups of people meet up to basically socialize about whatever. So it could be a Star Trek group, it could be a Comic-Con group, it could be, women that sew, all kinds of things. So, this is a great opportunity to search Meetup, see what kind of groups in your local area appeal to maybe a demographic that you want to target. Join the group, go to the meetups, meet people face to face. Definitely connect with the leader of the meetup group, because the meetup group leader knows typically everyone in the group because they approved them. So if you basically connect with the head of the monster, you can basically connect with the rest of the body. So Meetup, I think, is a great tool, and the mobile app helps you really manage those effectively. Power Search is an app that is basically everything you can do on Google Advanced Search that you can't really do on the mobile app. Power Search enables you to do everything on Google Advanced Search on the mobile app. So pretty straightforward on that one. Interview Assistant is essentially a plug-and-play, make interview questions before the interview. You can actually take photographs of people to record that you interviewed them. What did you talk about? What were their answers? It's essentially a management tool for your interviewing process. And some people that I know enjoy it. Some people it's a little bit weird to take pictures with a mobile phone, interview, and use a mobile phone. But I think more and more that stuff is going to be commonplace, particularly with tablets. My guess is a lot of you that are doing interviewing have a tablet with you. Anyway, the Hiring Employment Manager Advice app from DocStock. And if you're not familiar with DocStock, they provide a lot of really good content around a lot of different categories. HR employment is just one of them, but they go everything from tutorials, explaining how to hire and manage. It's great for people that don't have a recruiter, great for smaller companies, but it's also good, if you are a recruiter. One of the things that they do that's really cool is that they'll get CEOs from companies to give advice and information. So some great information on that if you want to check it out. Between My Jobs, I added primarily because they're the only one that I know right now that has augmented reality for their job search. So if you download the Between My Jobs app, if you're not familiar with augmented reality is basically your phone augments reality of what's there. So you point your camera at something. Let's say you point down the street, and you might get Yelp reviews of the restaurants that you're pointing at down the street. So find out where you want to go eat. So Treat My Jobs very similarly. You can point your mobile camera down a street, and they'll show you, hey, there's a barista job at Starbucks available over at that one right there. So I think that as we see Google Glass, we see wearable technology, you're going to see these things happen where people are just saying, hey, are there any jobs nearby? Or I'm going to go to the mall and say, who has a job opening? And somewhere on my phone or my glasses will pop up, hey, there's a job at Athlete's Foot or wherever. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, because I think augmented reality and mobile are going to sort of come together, and being aware of that is better than not being aware of it. The Jobless and Unemployment Data Researcher by SandApps is basically every bit of unemployment data, jobless data that you can imagine. They break it down by countries, states, sex, age. I mean, if you're really junky around, what's going on in employment globally and nearby, these guys have a great app to kind of help you keep track of that. It is a bit more depressing when the economy's bad, but it's a little better today. Seeking Alpha is one of my go-to resources for education in the public markets. If you work for a public company or you actively recruit from bigger sort of public companies, you can follow those public companies via Seeking Alpha. You have some of the best minds in the game talking about companies, what they think their stocks, their share price is going to do, opportunities that they're looking at, where they're seeing challenges, who their competitors are, and from this information, you can start understanding, who might be laying off people soon, or who are the companies that are having issues that might be easier to poach from than others. Likewise, who are companies that are growing that I could maybe target to help them in their recruiting efforts. StockTwitch, similar to Seeking Alpha, it's a stock site, and it is a Wild West Twitter-style, all kinds of people, all kinds of levels of understanding of stocks, talk about companies. So if you go to StockTwitch and you want to follow, half a dozen companies that you recruit from, you're going to get a lot of information. A lot of it will be gossipy. A lot of it will be true. Some won't be true. But it's one way to keep your finger on the pulse of companies that you might be recruiting from and what they're doing on the public markets. Recruiters Calculators is calculating your recruiting data. So if you are getting fees, it's a great way to calculate that. I just wanted to throw it in there if you don't have a handy tool. This might be a good one to carry around. Recruiter by Informed Assessment, assessment.co.uk, an app that covers, knowing what you're looking for, using different types of formats of interviews, preparing for interviews, managing the interview, interview evidence, delivering feedback to candidates, a lot of how-tos, a lot of advice. This one, along with some of the other ones like the DocStock app and the Interview Assistant app, are just tools to have with you in terms of the interviewing process. So if you're new to recruiting, some of this stuff might be really valuable to you to learn more about the profession. Dragon, a lot of people I know just live by, and it's a voice recognition system. So it essentially turns voice to text. So if you are familiar with Siri or Google Now, you know what I'm talking about. And if you are someone who likes to dictate about candidates on the go, in the car, Dragon is a great app to basically take notes verbally, put them on paper, put them on a cloud document where other people can see it. You can transfer the data to whatever database that you're using. But if you don't like to type, Dragon is maybe a great tool for you to dictate your voice. Box is a cloud storage company. So you can store PDFs, Word documents, whatever, pictures in the cloud. And then you can share that with other people in the company. They can access it. They can share documents in the same cloud, so you can all access it together. If you're familiar with Google Docs or some other cloud solutions like Dropbox, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But this is a great way. You can put resumes in the cloud, best candidates, video help tools. If you have people all across the country, think about Box as a tool. They have a great mobile app for that. Bump was one of the actual early recruiting style networking apps that came out early. And Bump is basically you bump phones with another person. They have to be the same phone, so an iPhone to an iPhone, for example, and your data will transfer to that person by bumping phones. Instead of typing it in or maybe a QR code, if you both have the Bump app, you can really get groovy and transfer data to each other. Skype, pretty familiar app as well. This is essentially phone conversations over the cloud service of Skype. They're getting really good integration with Microsoft. So I think that's something, if you're a big Microsoft user, that you're seeing. And video as well is a big part of Skype. Some of you are maybe doing video interviewing via Skype today. And I think that mobile is a great complement to those efforts. TextMinder, if you really have something that you can't miss, just because it's on your calendar doesn't mean you're going to see it. TextMinder is a great way to get a text reminder. Really easy to set up. Just remind yourself of stuff you need to do. And some of that is recruiting that you can't miss. Evernote is basically a way to store anything that you want into the cloud that you can readily access from your mobile device or anywhere that you have Evernote. So this might be pages on the web. It might be files. It could be text. People that I know that love it really, really love it, and it's a part of their everyday. Some of it's a little bit quirky, so some people don't love it as much as others. But if you haven't checked out Evernote, try it out. You might find that you really, really love it and can't live without it. 123 People is again another people search app, similar to a couple of ones that we've talked about here previously, like Look Up from TalentVin. This is another resource to look for people. GroupMe is a sort of group SMS or messaging app. So you could have a group of, let's say, 5 recruiters that could be a part of GroupMe, and anytime that you guys wanted to message everyone, you could do that through GroupMe. So that might be an easy, quick way to sort of, in 140 characters, talk about, what I'm doing today, how many interviews, quick questions I might have on the go that don't really make sense to do via text or any of the other solutions that you might be using. The Interviewer is another sort of interview help application. It actually runs during the interview, and it will prompt questions based on who you're interviewing, sort of templated style pre-interview questions. And there's also a post-assessment tool that you can get into pretty heavily if you want to, but it's another app that can help you through the actual interview process. Hootsuite, pretty familiar to a lot of people. Hootsuite helps you manage multiple social presences. So you might have a company Twitter account, you might have a personal Twitter account, you might want to follow hashtags on Twitter, you might want to follow a bunch of different people specifically on Twitter, what they're doing. And instead of logging in and out to different accounts, or instead of doing the searches over and over, it's sort of an easy way to have in one dashboard all of your social connections and being easy to answer in Q&A and interact with those people. Really powerful tool. If you're on Twitter actively, you're probably already on Hootsuite, probably religiously. One of the newer apps that has come out pretty recently called Brewster. Brewster is a way to connect all your social channels and your address books. So it's a way to say everyone who's in Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, for example, can all come into one platform. And what this is most interesting is when people change jobs, you can be alerted on Brewster to those changes. So if you want to have easy access to who of your network are changing jobs, you can get access to that pretty easily with Brewster. Here on Biz is an interesting tool if you're a big conference goer or you travel a lot. Here on Biz will connect you with other people on the app while you're in town. So if you're in Boston for a conference, you might check Here on Biz to see, hey, there are other people that I might want to meet, or hey, they're at the same conference that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And you can connect with those people via Here on Biz to meet up and discuss, whatever you want based on your interests. Trello is also a new app, and if you're familiar with what a Scrum is, basically people connecting for activities. So you have maybe 5 people on a project, and they all have different things that they have to do. This is a way to keep track of everyone's activities, what they're doing, when are they done. You can interact with questions on different activities. So it's a cool way to sort of scrum, which in tech terms is just sort of a quick meeting to see how everyone's doing, what's going on. You can do that via your mobile device with Trello. Clouds, fairly familiar, is a way to, your cloud score is in aggregate all your social connections, social networks, how active you are, how active your people are, how many followers. It's basically a score of I think 1 to 100. I guess it goes down to 1. I'm not sure, but it does go to 100 of just how influential you are in your social circles. So it's just one way to either feel good or bad about yourself, but it's also a way to look at people's cloud scores. So if you're recruiting, say, social, marketing people, social marketing, social media managers, maybe even salespeople that you want to see, do they have a lot of sort of pull in the industry and on social media? Cloud is a way that you can easily search cloud scores for people. Uber Conference is free conference calls. So anyone that has the app can really easily connect with each other and talk via conference phone. So if you find yourself at the airport or at a conference and you don't have that phone that's in the office, Uber Conference might be an easy way to get a lot of people in to a conference call easily via your mobile device. People Hub is one for the Microsoft people out there, and very similar to Brewster, where you have all your social connections. People Hub is an app basically for that for Microsoft users. YouTube, as well as you all know, is great for dogs on skateboards and cats that play piano, but as you're seeing more and more people socialize on YouTube, an interesting stat came out recently that YouTube is the fastest growing social network amongst teenagers. So whereas I don't necessarily think of YouTube as a social network, a lot of people do, and as I think, you know, YouTube's mobile apps become more prominent, that people become more interested in, you know, videotaping themselves on YouTube and sharing that stuff. You're going to see more interesting things happen on YouTube. I also think that YouTube is fantastic for education. If you want to learn anything about anything, YouTube has tons of experts about any topic that can teach you stuff. And in many cases, the people that are putting YouTube videos out there are potential candidates. If they know a hell of a lot about what you need at your company, you better believe that YouTube is a way to connect with that person. So that's one way to do it. Hashtags are another way. Search hashtags on YouTube around topics that you're looking for, and see, you know, who is out there that's an expert in your field that might be a great candidate. Clear is a pretty cool new app as well, and it's just a sort of elegant way to have a to-do list and clear things off of that to-do list. And looking at the image on the screen there, you'll notice that, you know, the different colors where it's red are the more important pressing issues, and as things get more important, they move up in color. And as you clear things off, it's just a real nice way, real pretty way, Web 2.0, 3.0, whatever, way to sort of create a to-do list for yourself. Blip is an interesting new app as well. It's private communication. So it's obviously great for dating. So if you're on a date, let's say you're a woman, you don't want to give out your entire biography to a potential blind date, you can decide, you know, how much information you give them. It could be almost nothing, based on however comfortable you are. So if you have, you know, passive candidates that, you know, maybe they're uncomfortable revealing who they are, maybe you're uncomfortable revealing who you are because you're a confidential opportunity, Glyph might be an interesting way to have a conversation with a candidate where you gradually give more information about who you are, or you feel comfortable to a level where you can actually reveal your identity. Waze is getting a lot of press. They're a target for Facebook, so I think that if that acquisition does go down, you're going to see a lot of talk about Waze and maybe some interesting integration into Facebook. But Waze is basically crowdsourcing for traffic data, which on its face doesn't seem like a great recruiting tool, but if you start connecting with people, know where they are, know where they travel based on their social data, if they're connected to you in some way, you know, where are they going, what are they doing, there might be events that you weren't familiar with, things that they do, maybe groups, maybe they're going to meetups that you weren't familiar with. It's just one way to sort of keep track of people in a location, which is sort of the calling card of mobile and marketing, is that geolocation element. Camcard is pretty similar to CardMunch. It's also a way to photograph people that you meet on your mobile phone. One of the things that's interesting about Camcard is it actually keeps the photo of the business card. So if you want to know, you know, the logo or something that really identifies the person based on their business card, it's one way to keep track of that in a different way than CardMunch. Scanner Pro, just like it says, it turns your phone into a scanner. So if you find yourself scanning resumes, scanning, if you want to scan just business cards or documents, this is a really pretty easy way to do it with your mobile phone. You know, don't lug the scanner to the job fair. just use this app to quickly sort of scan documents and put them on the cloud and share them with coworkers. Pocket is pretty cool if you are a data or an information or news junkie. Pocket basically enables you to see stories online and then essentially pocket them to read later. So things you see during the day, you can pocket them, and then when you go home at night or maybe in the morning when you're drinking coffee, you can go through the stories that you wanted to save for later via your Pocket app. Simple In and Out is one of the coolest apps that I've seen lately, and it's basically pretty simple. It's just a way to see who is in and out of the office. So everyone has a green light or a red light, and if they're out of the office, they have a red light. If they're in the office, they have a green light. And you can certainly have your settings to where you don't want to share or you don't want to sort of have automated ways of seeing where I am, or you can just go black. But if you have a culture that really wants to see who's in and out, what's going on, where is everybody, you have a really open infrastructure, Simple In and Out might be a really cool app for you guys to use with your company. Here Match is another sort of conference check-in app, and it allows you to check in at conferences, for example, and then if the app matches people who you may want to contact, so they sort of pitch themselves as we have an algorithm that will match you with other people at a conference or some event, and then you can both decide whether or not to meet. So if it knows from your LinkedIn profile that you're a sales guy, you're from you went to a certain college, and it will algorithmically see other people that fit that profile. So it might say, hey, you went to Texas, they went to Texas. This might be somebody that you have a lot of synergies with, and that app enables you to do that at events. And then white noise was one that I just sort of threw in, and it was funny because when I presented this before, it tends to be one of the more popular apps, and people use it outside of recruiting. But if you're like me and you travel, and you have a hard time sleeping when you travel, noises, the bed is uncomfortable, noises in the hall, whatever it is, white noise is an app that will run fan noise or beach noise or rain, storms, whatever kind of noise that will sort of put you to sleep. White noise is a great app to help you do that. So I found when I travel and I want to be at my best, white noise helps me sleep. So if that can help me, I think it'll help a lot of people out there as well. I wanted to close, if you made it this far, I wanted to offer a free book. I wrote a book called 25 Must-Have Apps for Business. So there are some apps that will cross over from this, but there are some general business apps that the book does cover, like accounting, management, marketing, things like that. So if you want to sort of broaden your horizons with what apps can do, I encourage you to go to bit.ly/25iPhone apps, download the book. It's free, and get more information that way. Other than that, I am done. Again, you can Q&A me at Twitter. You can also find out whatever you want about me on About Me/Joel Cheesman, and if you want to connect with me via LinkedIn or whatever, please feel free to do so. And thanks for your time.
Hey, Joel, thank you. We had a few questions. Do you want to answer just a couple right now?
Sure.
Okay. Someone asked, let's see here. Someone recommended actually that Evernote Hello is also a helpful application. Marcus Rinaldi mentioned that, wanted to put that out to everybody.
Yeah, the Evernote faithful are very adamant about Evernote, so it doesn't surprise me that someone would focus or highlight that.
Yep, and I guess they're calling it, I guess that's another helpful part of it. Someone said, are these apps relevant for use outside the United States?
Ooh, yeah, most are going to be more relevant to the U.S. And I mean the way that these apps are set up, some are cross-country, some aren't. There are probably a lot of foreign, apps in Germany that I would never have awareness of that are popular. Certainly some of the bigger ones, the LinkedIns, the Facebooks, those guys are obviously going to be global. I'd say some of the more obscure apps, the Highlight, the Sonar, those guys are probably going to be U.S. or at least English specific. So yeah, there are probably fewer of these that are going to be foreign benefit.
Okay, and then David Steinbeck asked, what are the top 3 to recruit software technicians in your mind?
Can you repeat that? Who are the top 3?
Top 3 apps. Top 3 apps to used to recruit software techs.
That's tough because I don't recruit many software techs. So, I think that part of it is what they use. I think if you want to get really guerrilla with it, I think Facebook advertising is really interesting, and it will take you some time to learn it. And I would, if you have a marketing department, if they're not using sort of Facebook Power Editor to advertise, that might be a real help, because you can target groups on Facebook of that profession that you can then advertise to. The other one, I think, Twitter. Twitter's advertising is really cool, and to be able to target by location, by hashtags, by what people are talking about is really interesting. Other than that, I mean, LinkedIn's sort of obvious.
Yeah, probably Talent Bin too. I know an HR tech conference, I met with the founder of Talent Bin, and he seemed to have some opinions along that line, so that might be one to also check out. I don't recruit software tech myself, but that's one.
I mean, you got lookup, and you got 1, 2, 3 people. The one search, the Power Search utility, was just like basically using Google. I mean, so that's sort of obvious. But yeah, I think we've hit at least maybe 3 that would be helpful, hopefully.
Yeah. Which app are you using the most of the ones you recommended here?
Probably Twitter.
White noise?
Well, yeah. I wish I could sleep that much. Yeah, probably Twitter. But the newer ones are tough because you hope that they hit scale, and you hope that they hit critical mass, because some of those, the Brewsters and the Here Match. I mean, the idea of like going to an event and algorithmically being connected to people is pretty cool, but everyone has to have it for it to work. So some of the smaller ones, the newer ones have potential, but time will tell whether or not it hits critical mass and it's that beneficial.
Okay, and then a couple people asked, are any of these good for BlackBerry apps? And I guess I would say you have to check your application store and see if they're available. If they are, I know a few of the ones you mentioned here are available for Android. I'm an Android user myself and have many of them on my phone. So if they're available to the phone, then yeah, they'd be good for your product.
Yeah, I mean, they may have missed at the beginning where I kind of said this is really heavy on Android and iPhone. There's the battle of BlackBerry and Microsoft is going to be an interesting one, and I think we have our Coke and Pepsi, and who's going to be our Dr. Pepper and who's going to be our RC Cola. BlackBerry still has 70 million users, and a lot of them are corporate. So if people are making recruiting specific apps, you mentioned Talent Bin's Lookup, that's a very recruiting specific app. So if they know that a lot of recruiters are on BlackBerries and corporate networks, they're going to develop for those platforms. It's just, I think, you have to go search your app store, see if these apps are on those stores. If they're not, I think there's probably a good chance that they will be eventually, because app developers work in sequence of iPhone, Android, and then they pick BlackBerry or Microsoft based on where they think their target audience is. So if you're using recruiters are probably more on BlackBerry than they are on Microsoft at this point. So you're probably going to see these migrate over to BlackBerry before you see Microsoft.
Okay, and I guess I'd like to say that there's been some questions about will they be able to get this list somewhere else. I think you said you would make it available. We'll also have the availability to rewatch the replay of this webinar. Look forward to the link from us after the webinar. We'll send it to you, and you'll have a place to go and be able to watch this all over again. We are recording it. And again, my name is Noel Coca from Recruiting Blogs. Joel, thank you so much for your time, and it was really a pleasure speaking with you and listening to you talk today.
Thanks, Noel. I appreciate it, man.
Okay, well, this will conclude our webinar. Thank you, everybody.